collaborative enterprise, and it's apparently an enterprise made of people who are skeptics and who don't obey instructions. That's the way most scientists actually are. And so some of the people who I most respect, people who were involved in building nuclear weapons, my teachers, they communicated back and forth across the Cold War on both sides, risking their lives to do it, and that's part of the reason we didn't have a hot war. They didn't do what they were told. Mm-hmm. And so Russian people like Sakharov risked their lives, and in fact, well, were tortured to try and communicate back and forth against their leaders' wishes, to be clear. That's the science community I'm proud of. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do what it's told.
Yeah,
and that's why when people tell me there's a big conspiracy of scientists, I think, oh, what? It's the last people I'm going to have big conspiracies. Mm-hmm. And science only works, each person only sees a little bit. And so it's very hard to have some big piece of science that's walled off. Again and again we hear, oh, the military has this amazing science, and it's not true. Mm-hmm. So I mean, no, well, you can read about it, but I'm telling you my world. My world is that, understood, but my world is that the military sometimes tries and walls off little projects like to build better electronics, and they find that they just don't have the money to keep up with Apple and RIM and the big developers, because it's all a connected world.
That's what I mean about when you were saying, you know, private companies as opposed to the military. I think that's where that marriage is that, you know, these guys will develop it for you and go from there.
But they can't develop, they can develop applications. So if you want me to build, you know, a robot that flies around in Iraq and shoots people with bombs, that's easy. That's applying known hardware in a way we know how to do. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but we know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's applying military science to commercialized science.
Whatever, it's all, there's only one science, there's applications.
But you can take commercialized things and apply military science.
Of course.
So
well, I'm not sure what you mean by military science. The military doesn't really do
it's not a
science.
Entity. Those aren't interlooped. Don't tell me they are. Military and commercial are interlooped sciences. We're talking like they do things behind the curtains of each other. Like military scientists are not working with civilian scientists on the same projects.
This simply isn't the world I live in. So I mean, I don't know any such.
The world I grew up in.
Understood, but it's not the world.
Military bases. And
understood.
Stuff like that.
So I've also spent.
Separated it is.
So that's not. I've also spent a fair amount of time at military bases, and I have lots of people who work in the policy world work on both sides. And my experience is it's a pretty socially connected network with people working together, and that's exactly why people don't keep secrets very well.
That is the most untrue statement I have heard here.
But everyone's entitled to their own perspective.
Actually, I'm just telling you my personal experience.
What's going on here is he's given his perspective on what he's experienced, and it's possible that we have experienced something different. Now, I just want to ask you, is it possible that there might be something outside of what you've experienced?
Of course. I mean, I think there are some little secrets they keep. So let me tell you the kind of secrets they can effectively keep. All the actual command and control secrets they can try and keep. So the issue is like, what's the plan for attacking this village versus that village in Afghanistan? Those operational things, they keep those secrets. If the issue is we're going to have a limited number of helicopters that are radar black, that then we use the 1-1 to try and get Osama, you can keep that secret for a little while, but it wasn't really even a secret because in fact there was a bunch of stuff in Aviation Week 3 years ago.
What about the depleted uranium being used in?
What's the secret? It's commercial.
It is a secret though, because it's not known that that's being used by civilian. Like our cultural society does not know that your depleted uranium, which is basically a nuclear bomb without a mushroom cloud, is being used.
No, it's not a nuclear bomb. It's just depleted uranium.
Okay, it's nuclear. It's affecting babies. It's affecting like everything in Libya right now. Well, in Iraq, the proof with deformed babies with.
So let's separate out. There's nobody questions that depleted uranium rounds are used by the military. They're commercial contracts.
Lots
this is
of
a well-known.
Lots of people.
Okay, I've never met anybody.
It's not well known by society.
Okay, well, so to me, but in the I guess in the crowd of sort of people who know technology, it's a commonly understood thing. It's a mass market product. Let me just finish.
But how does that go on under like?
But because.
That's nuclear. That is nuclear, isn't it?
But it doesn't. So it's well known that it happens. But at least my understanding and the common open science understanding of toxicology is that the impacts of that compared to the overall impacts of war are tiny.
I think we need to make a distinction, and I push back on you on your concept of secret, and I think you brought up the good point. Not being well understood, say let's say on the front page of the Times and on the National Post, it does not constitute a secret. A secret is a very organized approach to make sure people don't hear about it. So it may not be widespread, which we can conceive of, but the idea of secret, and I think you stated that very well in your comment, is very different. Well understood, not widely disseminated, not widely talked about at the kitchen table, and secret.
Let me pick up on this. This is a really good example. So depleted uranium rounds are not secret in the sense that if you go to the military and say, how many do you procure, they'll give you the number. Like it's a public contract.
And
so you're free. You can go. You can file freedom of information. There's nothing secret about it. Yeah. The actual operational use of any military stuff, whether it's a regular, 7mm round of a single person, the operational use of militaries are always secret. But the fact that they're using them is a complete non-secret, in the sense that you can go and knock on the door and they'll tell you the answer.
Okay.
And so I think that's important.
The same thing can be said with things such as HART, right? Like where Jesse Ventura went and knocked on the door and they gave him some answers, but they didn't give him all of them. So we can find out some answers about depleted uranium, but do we know all of them? Do we know what's going to happen 50 years down the road to those areas that have been hit by depleted uranium shells and bombs? I don't think we do.
So you're touching on another topic that's really important, and a topic
it all connects though, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
So it's okay. So one of the topics that David and I spend a lot of time thinking about, and me when I think about risk, is it something you just touched on, and it comes into our conversations and many conversations about what if something like a geoengineering program needed to be used, is the way David and I understand that word, is this idea of the unknown unknown. So what happens when we don't know? And that's oftentimes, there are lots of research about how we understand things to talk about. That's where ideas of dread and fear come in. And so the way academics define fear really comes from a combination of how dreadful we think it is and how much we don't know about it. And so ideas that you're bringing up of, well, we're using these rounds, we have toxicology reports right now, but what happens in 50 years is not secret, it's not whatever. At some level, David and I can give you a lot of data, not maybe about spent uranium rounds, about other things that we know a lot about, and give you pretty good ideas, if not very good ideas, of what might happen. But I don't think either one of us, and David, you can jump in, at some level recognize that there are unknown unknowns that exist when engaging with technology. And so that is a very real thing, and we can push the science and ask the questions, but there is some uncertainty, and there is uncertainty in everything we do.
I forget who made a nice comment about the fact that maybe it was names mixed up. Estrella, who's saying that we often think of it, build the technology first, and then cars first, and then seatbelts.
Simone.
That's you. Sorry, Simone. Sorry to mix up.
That's okay.
So yeah, so agreed. The unknown unknowns are there, and we think about them for the things we work on.
And try to minimize them as we talk about it and talk about it.
So can I just, because I'm very grateful that you're sharing and being very open with us. I think it's amazing. I'd like to suggest, because a lot of my research is on the internet, and there's lots of people putting a lot of stuff out there, but I really highly recommend, I'm surprised that you haven't watched the movie, because obviously you've been threatened with this chemtrail issue, and this movie has you speaking, I just want, like, as a, to be respectful, has you speaking and saying things that I can see why people are angry at you, because the way it's presented is